Dear John Holloway, thanks for joining us and thanks for accepting that important interview, first of all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a real pleasure.
That's very a big honor for me to do this interview, first of all, just to let you know. So let's just start with the event, especially the People's Platform Europe. How important is the event and how did you find it? What is the insights of the event from your perspective?
I think it's terrific. I really think it's exciting. Um, I've been to previous events organized by the Kurdish movement, like in Hamburg 2 years ago, and in Hamburg, I think it was 8 years ago, was it anyway? I don't know. Yeah. Um, which were terrific, but this one I'm really finding very impressive. The organization, I think, has been magnificent. But what I'm, what I feel, I mean, the theme of the meeting is reclaiming the initiative, and the fact that there are so many people here and so many young people coming from 30 countries or more than 30 countries. It's just really, it gives me a lift. And I find it very impressive. I suppose that sometimes, obviously, I go to meetings, talk about Marxist theory, and everybody there is about 60 years old. And to come here and see such an enthusiastic number of young people who are obviously looking for some way of changing the world, no? And they're looking to the Kurdish movement for inspiration with this. And that for me is very, very important. And we need that so much, that it's something that I feel has died away really in recent years. And this feeling of especially young people wanting to discuss, wanting to think about the way forward, wanting to think against capitalism. Yeah,
Can we say this is a hope for the future?
absolutely. Yes, I think so. I mean, I'm certainly feeling it that way. And I think that's the impression I will take back. I was invited, I also joined it to a meeting that was organized by the Zapatista movement at the end of December, where I was invited, but I wasn't able to go because I was ill. But again, there was a feeling there of being in a very difficult situation, but really taking the initiative again and launching new ideas and getting a lot of enthusiasm.
Carefully listen your speech as well. We can do it. We can win. You said you underline the winning and
Yeah.
this process as well. So very shortly, can you open this for our audience a little bit more?
I think there is so much, I mean, with what is happening in the world at the moment, with the genocide in Gaza, with the rise of Trump and the new right in so many countries, there is a danger that we begin to let our thinking be closed down, that we reduce our expectations, that we reduce our vision of the world, that we think, oh no, this is dreadful, we can't do anything, or this is dreadful, we just have to survive. And I think that no, that on the contrary, the difficulty of the present situation just makes it more important than ever that we think of revolution, that we think of breaking capitalism, that we think of creating a different world. And then when you think, of course, well, this is crazy, this is insane, how on earth do we do it? There are a number of ideas that occurred to me. The way I expressed it today was really, we're so many different movements, so many groups. We're struggling away. We're like Sisyphus in the sense that we're pushing a great big rock up a hill. And at times we think, well, we'll have to do it again tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. But it's not like that. Okay, we are all in our different groups, different movements, pushing this great rock or great rocks up the hill. But no, we're going to keep on pushing, and we're hoping to get to a tipping point, a point at which we reach the top of the hill, and then it goes downwards, and then everything becomes easy, and it becomes obvious that, of course, we must create a different world. So it's that constant effort. How do we do that? I think the only way that we can do it is partly by saying no in every possible way to the capitalist aggression, but also by creating as much as we can a world without money, a world of sharing, a world of communizing, if you like. I mean, which is what is being done, at least to some extent, in Rojava, as I understand it, as well among the Zapatistas in Chiapas, but also in a lot of different movements. And if we think of those movements as not being just territorial or communal, but also related to specific activities. So we can think of, okay, let's try and create an education. Let's push back. I mean, money has been advancing really over the last 20, 30, 40 years. But now we push money out of education. Let's push it out of healthcare. Let's push it out of music, which so many people do anyway without thinking about it politically. I think that's what we have to do. I think it's difficult, but it will become more and more urgent as time goes on.
The capitalist system, that's something that we always criticize, and um, uh, we want to change that. We already talk about the hope, and you underlined how young people are coming together to fight against this, basically. But what kind of ideology should be, what kind of paradigm should be against the system and should give directions to the fight against capitalist system?
I suppose I see the capitalist system basically as being based upon, I mean, as Marx says, the exchange of commodities. How do we relate to one another today? We relate through the exchange of commodities, which is through money. No? Okay, not all the time. We are not relating in that way, obviously. But if I think, well, what am I going to eat this evening? Then the relation between me and the person who makes the food, since I'm not at home especially, will be mediated through money. You know? Okay. And it is that that relation that creates a dynamic, the dynamic of money, the dynamic of capital. Okay, and it is that relation that we have to break in some way. How we can do it, the alternative would be to say, no, we really have to create and expand relations of sharing or commoning or communizing, which already exist to some extent, but we have to make them much, much stronger. If you think of what? If you think of food, let me say, if we were at my home in Mexico at the moment, I could invite you to dinner. At the end of the dinner, I wouldn't ask you to pay for it. I would say, what a lovely friendship we are developing. No? Okay, to think of social relations in that way, but not just within the family and not just in a small group of friends, but it's something that we have to push and generalize much more.
So
Yeah,
in that way, maybe the alternative can grow more and get more stronger against
I think so. I
capitalism.
think that's what has to happen, really. So you're asking about the ideology. I think perhaps the most important thing for me is a growing awareness of what of the catastrophic results of capitalist social organization. That we have to, I mean, people are already, there is a lot of social discontent, a lot of feeling that the system doesn't work at the moment, that the system doesn't work in the sense of providing people with a satisfactory or secure way of living. And for me, the ideology would really come in terms of um, saying, yes, I mean, the system doesn't work and we really have to rethink it from the base up. It's not a question of changing politicians. It's not something that can be solved through the state. It's something that has to be solved in a communal way, really.
Exactly. Thank you. That was really clear and to the point. As you know, 26 years ago, Kurdish leader Abdullah Öcalan has been kidnapped and given to the Turkey by some international powers. And so after that, Öcalan found a way and find out also that how to fight against the capitalism and imperialism as he been kidnapped by the system basically. So he also trying to create an alternative system against capitalism. How do you see that? How do you evaluate it? How do you read the Öcalan's ideas? What kind of sense does it make to you? Yeah, it can be very shortly as well.
How do I see it? The easiest answer for me is I see it like today. No, I mean, you can say yes, the result of Öcalan's rethinking, the result of his tremendous work, the result of the whole organization built around that, we see in the excitement and the enthusiasm of the people who've come here today. That's I suppose, how I see the kind of bridge between his thinking and writing and doing in the prison, no? And the upsurge of hope among many, many people, including obviously the young people who are here. Um, that, I think that is the most important. That I've never been to Rojava, so it's very difficult for me to comment on it in detail. But what I do see is a movement that gives enormous inspiration to people, not just because of the ideas, but because those ideas are being put into practice. No? And that changes things. No? One thing is just have the ideas. No? But then when you say, well, yes, it's not just that the ideas are in the air, but these ideas are being carried out with lots of contradictions, obviously. No? But these ideas are being put into practice by people living in Rojava. The idea of building a communal state, a stateless society, a society without a state, built upon a communal collaboration, basically.
So there is two terminologies. One of them is democratic confederalism, another one is capitalist modernity. So how do you spare these two terminologies? This is your own opinion, and I'm really wondering to know that it's very valuable for me. Do you think the democratic confederalism is something a way to fight against capitalist modernity?
Yeah, I think that in terms of what those terms signify, I think they're very important. They're not terms that I use, or they're not terms that I feel comfortable with. Personally, I suppose in that sense I come too much from a Marxist background. So I don't think of capitalist modernity, I think of capitalism. And I hate capitalism. Capitalism is destroying the world. I mean, so with that, of course, I'm saying the same as Öcalan are supporters when they talk about capitalist modernity. But I don't need the modernity. I'm quite happy to use
The same thing.
capitalism. It's the same thing. And with democratic confederalism, again, it's not a term I use because I think, but in terms of what it means, then yes, completely. Now, I suppose I would talk in terms of communizing. No, but I understand communizing really is what you would call democratic confederalism. No?
Communists.
Yeah. So, and the reason I suppose I use communizing, not communism, is because it's a verb, which means it's a process. It's something that we're trying to create that's changing all the time. So yeah, I suppose but in terms of what the Öcalan's terms actually mean, I have no problem at all. Yeah.
Two DEM party representatives visited him in Imrala Island. And so he mentioned that if the ground and if there is any possibility, I can bring the war to the peaceful negotiations table. And when we look at to the Turkey's agenda now, all the headlines and everything is talking about the a possible peace process um, to be started. And so both sides are looking for a peace. How important is to create this table and to bring the conflict to the peaceful negotiations?
I think it's very important. I think war is always a disaster. I think it is very important. It's also very important for how people see Turkey. It would, if Turkey engaged seriously in a process of peace, if Turkey recognized the importance of the process in Rojava, for example, or just the importance of the whole Kurdish movement, no, then this would mean a huge increase in the respect for Turkey that is felt in the world. I mean, now it is, I suppose we think of Turkey as a dictatorship, as a nasty place with a nasty, well, not necessarily a nasty place, but a nasty government. And it would be wonderful to see peace there, and to see it, I suppose, as part of a much more generalized peace process in the Middle East as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Lastly, briefly, anything I didn't ask, anything you would like to say in this frame, please have your last words.
I think it's very important for people who might be watching this broadcast to say just how important Rojava is for the world. I live in Mexico. I have a lot of contact with, well, take part in discussions in Latin America in general. And for us, what the Kurdish movement is achieving, what you are trying to build in Rojava, is a tremendous source of hope. And hope is so important for us at the moment, but always, but especially at the moment. The understanding that things can really be changed, with contradictions, with conflicts, with enormous suffering as well. But just to have the the the, the image that things can be transformed is of enormous importance to us in Latin America, and I think to people throughout the world.
Professor John Holloway, thanks for joining us and thank you for your valuable comments. It's been honor.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor for me.
Thank you.